All right, greetings everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Patrick Kane. I'm the assistant varsity assigner for the OK Conference basketball side of things. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Thank you for those of you that took the time to fill out the surveys before this event. This is an important meeting to make sure we get on the same page, foster better collaboration and communication, which is what we're going to talk about. It's also the first time that we've gotten together as a group in 12 years. So the last time we got together was back in 2013, and this is an important meeting for us to make sure we have the same expectations. We're hearing what coaches and officials are saying about one another. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Our goals for today are pretty simple. Foster greater understanding between coaches and officials. Learn about one another. What are some facts and stats that you didn't know about the other side? And then hopefully at the end, leave with a joint commitment to better work together. So we're going to talk through that today. But I think one important aspect to talk about is we share consistent top whys that we are on the court together. So the top two reasons that coaches say they coach is to teach through youth sports and to give back to the community in sport. Those are the same top two reasons that our officials say they're out there. It's not the money. We'll talk about that a little bit, but it's giving back to the community and it's supporting youth sports. So when we're out there, coaches, officials realize we're out there for the same reasons. Today, here's our quick agenda. We're going to hear from the OK Conference leaders. I'm going to walk you through some data and officiating trends. We'll hear from the leaders of the MHSAA. You're going to hear from coaches and officials association leadership about what they do. I'll walk you through how we assign officials to games and how that process works. We're going to hear from a panel, I should say, of leaders, coaches, an AD, and a couple of officials, and then we'll have some parting thoughts. Before I turn it over and introduce our new OK Conference commissioner, I wanted to ground ourselves in some data. You probably saw some stats about how big the OK Conference is. We are a big, powerful conference, and we should be proud of that. But we should also be proud that we are a basketball conference. So I took last year's 2025 ending NPR for all of the OK Conference schools, and we ranked number 3 for boys and number 5 for girls. That's something we should be proud of. We have a lot of schools, and collectively we are among the best in Michigan. The other part that I wanted to point out is we are the biggest in our area, which is a good draw. A lot of officials want to work in the OK Conference because it's good basketball and there's a lot of great schools. So we should be proud to be here together as a group. It also, we're a large group. It's easier for us to get the attention from the fine folks in East Lansing to come and visit with us and share their thoughts. So it's something to be proud of. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the new OK Conference Commissioner, Dan Beckerman. Dan has been involved in education and sports for over 40 years. He began his teaching career at Grant as a biology teacher and also coached the boys' basketball and baseball teams. He also saw in a number of extracurricular clubs. In 1990, he became the assistant principal at Reeths-Puffer High School and later principal, a role in which he held for 29 years, retiring in 2021. Some of Dan's other notable accomplishments are he was previously OK Conference president, was the Muskegon Area Basketball Coach of the Year in 1988, and in 2022, Reeths-Puffer Arena was named in his honor. Please join me in welcoming our new OK Conference Commissioner, Dan Beckerman.
Well, good evening. Thank you for coming out tonight. I'm going to be very brief. One, I had a chance to take a look at the slide deck of all the information, data that's been put together, and it was very impressive to take a look at it. And I think Patrick's got a plan to abbreviate some of that, but I'm really hoping that you'd get an opportunity to take a look through some of the statistics. They are phenomenal. I've been a member of the OK Conference for a long time, and I'm very proud to say that membership brought great lifelong friendships. And I took a look around, and I've seen some of you refereeing basketball for many years. You're going to hear some panelists tonight. I go all the way back to the 1982 school year with one of these panelists. Here's what I would share out when I think about the important role that you play. When I think of respect, I think of it in two different ways, honor and dignity. And when I think about respect and honoring the role that you play, if it's an official or if it's a coach or if it's an athletic director, however you are supporting student athletes, your role is so important. And to honor that role, if it's a patch that you're wearing with black and white stripes, honor the role. When I think about dignifying, it's so important that we dignify the people that we are associated with. If you are an official, we're dignifying the players, we're dignifying the coaches. If you're a coach, we're dignifying the officials and the opposing players and coaches along with your own. It's so important today to take time to smile, to enjoy what we're doing, because sports has morphed into, unfortunately, a business. Should never be a business in high school. It should be about the sport, the joy of actually participating. And officials and coaches, you play such a significant role in that. Never let this become a business at the high school level. And it all starts with how we respect one another. And I've seen it on many, many occasions about how we take care of one another. It's never been more important than it is right now to understand what respect, what honor, and what dignity really looks like from the role you're about to play this winter. I sure hope I get a chance to see you smiling with the players, laughing with the coaches, laughing with your partner before the game, during the game, and after the game, whatever role you play. Thank you for taking part in the greatest conference in the state of Michigan, bar none. I'm so proud to be serving in the capacity that I am right now, and I look forward to getting an opportunity to shake your hand either tonight or sometime over the winter. Thanks so much.
My turn. Here we go. Arrow. Okay. Hi, everyone. First, thank you for being here. I know Patrick said it again. Did you say about the register or the? For those that don't know, there's a little QR code on your program. If you think of it, scan it and register. So the powers that be know that you're here. Okay. So assigning varsity. Here we go. Who's who in the area? Who's who in the area leadership? First, you have the OK conference, right? So you have the OK commissioners, and then you have the schools and the ADs, and then you have the assigners. Varsity only, I assign varsity. This year I brought on a teammate to help, Patrick Kane, who is kind of helping orchestrate and run this whole thing. From there are training associations. Here you go. There are training associations who then supplement and support the OK conference. There are 3 primary training associations that we use. It's the WMOA, the USAOA, and MMOA. And then from there are area assigners, myself, as well as a fine list of individuals who assign anywhere from middle school on up to sub-varsity, as well as varsity assignments outside of the OK. So there's just a pile of people to support this endeavor. Okay, who's who? Okay, I'm just putting it all up there. Okay, who's who? So I get a lot of questions. Megan, what does the WMOA say about this? Well, you know what? I'm not the WMOA. I represent the OK conference. So hopefully this provides a little bit of clarity. Who's who role clarification. The MHSAA is responsible to ensure that we're all good humans. Coaches and officials alike, they do the background checks. They're gonna, once they do that, they're going to make sure that we're all standard on rules, knowledge, skill sets. They're going to handle any conflicts or issues, ejections, etc. And then they do the district assignments postseason for basketball. Then there's the OK conference. Those are your schools. They're going to run the league, the schedule. They have an assigner. That's me, puts officials on games. We're going to maintain and manage any varsity schedule changes, snow days, issues, etc. If there's an issue with a coach and an official, I'm the one we're going to try and kind of conflict that out between the school. And then we offer tournament recommendations for postseason to MHSAA. From there are training associations, which I just mentioned, the 3 primary. Their job is mentorship, leadership, recruitment, to bring in new officials to help train them up, to take mid-tier officials, help them connect with varsity officials, to help them build their skill set, provide training opportunities, encourage them to go to summer camps, and really helping the constant communication between the assigners and the associations, so we make sure nobody's left behind and we can account for everybody. And then again, from there, all the local assigners, not just me. There's a pile of people, and I encourage everybody always to work with multiple assigners to build your skill set, work within different conferences, work different game skill set levels. You learn so much working at all the different levels. Okay. And then my ask today, hold on. There we go. Today, I just ask that you challenge yourself as you're listening to everything. Be open to change. Have that growth mindset. If you hear something, try it on, try it out for the season, make a few changes, see if it sticks, see if we can't bring this connection together, because as Pat just alluded to, we do all share the same goal. We have an official over here, we have a coach over here, but believe it or not, we all do want to support that student athlete. We do want to see them succeed, and we all want to do it through the sport that we all love together. So thank you for being here. Pat, you're up next. Appreciate everybody. Thank you so, so, so much.
All right, thank you, Megan. Okay, so we're gonna start getting into the meat of the deck. You have gotten a lot of surveys from me over the years, whether it be in my roles at the WMOA prior to this meeting, and what I want you to take from that is we are trying to use data to change the processes that we're implementing today. So the first key thing I want you to take away is that we not only do this for the same reason, but coaches and officials, we seek the same things. We want greater consistency. Coaches, you are seeking greater consistency as a group of officials. Officials are also wanting greater consistency as a group of officials. We want improved communication. Coaches, really it's a pretty simple ask. You want officials to be willing to explain calls. It's a fair ask, it's a simple ask. I see a lot of big egos that are getting in the way of communication, so we're gonna talk a little bit about that. Officials also want communication improvement. They want, if you're gonna ask a question, coaches, we ask that you're willing to listen to the answer that you're gonna get. You might not like the answer, but we're at least be willing to answer. And then also officials would ask, have a little bit of a less of assumption that the official's out there to try to screw you. We are not. We want to arbitrate that game fairly. The last thing, and it's a distant third thing, but everyone asks questions about how are we assigning officials? What is the process that we go through? So we're gonna walk you through that tonight. The key takeaway though is that both coaches and officials are both asking, we need to make sure the best officials are on those most difficult games to officiate. So quick deeper dive into the makeup of the conference. So we asked coaches and ADs, how long have you been a coach or an AD? There's not a huge takeaway from this slide other than about a third of ADs and coaches are relatively new. They've been doing that for less than 5 years. One of the striking things to me, which I use data with my job all the time, so I'm a data nerd, but how close these pie charts were the same. So the number of coaches and ADs that have been doing this for a long time, almost identical, similar down to those that are new. Just an interesting takeaway. Athletic directors. I did not appreciate the role of an athletic director until I started doing research for today. Some of the biggest schools have more than 35 sports, more than 100 teams, potentially more than 150 coaches. And the one thing that I didn't really factor in is not only is the AD dealing with all of these different things and all these different coaches, but they're likely dealing with 1,500 parents that have an opinion about the bias towards their children. So they're very focused on what their children are getting and happening in their school district. So that's a lot that ADs have on their plate. We also asked varsity coaches, how much time are you investing in your season? And I didn't know what to expect with this answer, but it's a lot. So our varsity coaches spend, on average, 830 hours a year. That's on average. So some are way more than that, some are less than that. But the context there is, for very few coaches, this is a full-time gig, but they're spending half of their year with the equivalent of a full-time job. So coaches are spending a huge amount of time with their teams, and you can understand the passion that they have, especially as this is a part-time gig. We asked coaches and ADs, what are the biggest challenges you face? And not surprisingly, with the time commitment and the investment that they have that I just mentioned, it's time away from family. Their number one challenge has nothing to do with the sport, has nothing to do with anything else. It's how much time they're investing. How much time are they spending away from home? The second two reasons were parents and spectators. So as officials, I know how we feel about coaches and spectators and parents, but coaches too are saying spectators and parents are some of the most difficult problems we have to deal with. But officials, I also want to note, there's a lot of problems that coaches and ADs are dealing with. Officiating is one of them. So it may not be the top reason, but the data indicates that we have room to get better, and we need to challenge ourselves to get better, especially for one of the best conferences in the state. Quickly, coaches, 2/3 are involved as educators. So not surprisingly, many are involved as a teacher within that school. 2/3 are involved, but a third are not. A third are involved in some other profession. There could be business people, whatever. It's a wide smattering. You can see how many different answers there are on the upper right of that chart. Equally, there's a number of officials that are involved in education, but I think the key takeaway for coaches to realize is this is a part-time gig for these officials as well, and they come from all walks of life, all different roles. We have doctors, we have people that work in grocery stores, we have a good number of retired folks, but we are your neighbors. We are the people that live down the street from you. This isn't some enclave of officials living in some part of the area. It's just we are the people that live down the street. I think another important context is we factor in, this is a part-time gig for everyone. Officials, coaches, we all have bad days. So you don't know what you're walking, you don't know what you're walking into with that gym. Did that coach just have something bad happen in their job? Did that official just have their car break down? Do they have kids at home that they're stressed about? Or do they have that lovely spouse at home that is upset that they're not at home? There's a lot of things that we're dealing with, and I think one of the important takeaways is even in those heated moments, we need to remember to try to have grace with the other side, because who knows what they're dealing with. We're all normal people. We all have other things going on in our lives. In basketball, while it's important to all of us, it isn't the end-all be-all. To that point, we have a number of officials and coaches with kids at home. So that's my sweet daughter Maggie, who I leave at home every time I come to the gym. 38% of officials have kids that they're leaving at home to come work games. A number of officials either have officiating in the family, so a father officiating with their kid, or my daughter likes to come and watch the games. That's my older daughter who likes to come and watch games. That's my father-in-law who I'm with. But coaches, Joe, it's your beautiful daughter, have 73% of coaches, 3/4 of coaches have kids at home. We need to recognize the sacrifice that we're making, and that is the face I get when I tell my daughter that I have a game that night. So we are leaving people at home. We need to recognize the sacrifice we are all making. I'm going to quickly get into a little bit more about the OK Conference officials. Coaches asked for information about this. How many officials are there? So there are 435 conference officials, 71 crews. Coaches, you guessed that the average age of officials in our area was 46. It's actually 53. Most officials have been doing this for around 20 years, and the average starting age was around 30. Now, that doesn't mean officials start when they're 30. There's a huge number that start below 30 and a number that start after, but the average age is around 30. Kind of an interesting factoid for you. I did some research about how much officials run up and down the court. So the average official will run 2.1 miles in a varsity contest. Coaches, think about for a second, how far do you think your players are running in a game? National research indicates it's less than that. So your 55-year-old average official is running 2.1 miles more. That's more than your players are running in a game. So it's just a factoid, not looking for kudos or anything, just interesting. Of the OK Conference officials, 2/3 are doing multiple sports. A majority are doing football as well as basketball, but we also have those doing softball, baseball, volleyball, and a small number doing soccer, and there's others that do track and field and other sports as well. One interesting factoid with this is of the officials that do multiple sports, 2/3 say that basketball is their primary sport. I think that speaks to how many people love basketball, and those that are doing basketball, the majority say this is the reason I'm officiating. We've also had a number of coaches and ADs ask recently about diversity metrics, so we want to talk about that briefly. There are 78 diverse officials within that 435. There are 20 crews that have a diverse official on the crew, and there are 2 all-diverse crews. There are a small number of female officials. So when you think about the number of female athletes that we're supporting, there's not very many female officials, and we're going to work to try to change that, and we're going to challenge you to help us change that. Our coaches also asked, what are the numbers by level? How many officials are doing more than just high school? And it's a small number, but there is a number that we're working with. But not very many are doing D3 and beyond. The average timeline that it will take for an official to get to varsity games is around 4 years, and it will take around 7 years to get to higher level varsity. And then the last factoid about the OK Conference, we use crews. If you talk to the MHSAA and you talk to other areas, crews are not something that most of the state uses. There's pros and cons to that. It usually is better consistency that we find, but also your crews aren't working with other officials. So that crew might be consistent, but you don't necessarily see what's happening with the other crews. So officials, we need to take note of that, and so that's something Megan and I need to think about. Like, are there points in time where it makes sense to break crews up to make sure we have greater consistency happening? The other factoid I thought was really interesting is when you look at the officials from the OK Conference, we have officials that are southeast of Battle Creek all the way up to Ludington. We cover a huge area. So much so that this year, OK Conference officials will drive 100,000 miles to cover games. That's enough to drive around the world 4 times. So we're covering a lot of games. We're drawing people out in from outside of our area. We're getting to games. Okay, OK Conference in coaches and officials make mutual investments. So I talked about the reasons that both of us are doing this. The point I want to make with this is I think there's a lot of coaches that think officials are just doing this to make money. It is not about the money. For coaches and officials, it is like the 5th or 6th reason. It's way down on the list. It's not all that important. For a varsity example, I think there was a couple coaches asked how many hours are officials putting in. So an average varsity official is putting in at least 123 hours a season. They're going to make around $2,100 through game fees after their expenses, which would be association dues, MHSAA dues and insurance, new shoes, equipment, whatnot. They're really going to net out around $1,100. We are investing, both coaches and officials, in others. Coaches, average coach tenure is around 8 years. You're spending 11, over that tenure, you're spending about an entire year away from your family. So 11.5% of the time you're spending elsewhere to coach. Officials, if you take an example of a family that has a child at home from birth to 18, they're gonna spend over a year and a half or nearly a year and a half of that child's life working your games. So we are both investing in others, and I think it's an important stat for us to mutually appreciate the benefit and the time that we're spending towards others. All right, this is a stat that I'm not going to share outside of this group. I'm certainly not going to share it with your significant others. So coaches, per hour, assuming roughly a $5,000 a year salary, which some are more, some are less, that's around average, that nets out to about $6 an hour. So officials, take note. On the flip side, officials, I think, you see that $115 game fee, oh my gosh, these officials are making lots of money. By the time you put all the hours in, you take away the expenses, it's about $9 an hour. We aren't doing this for the money overall. It's a supplement. I don't think any of us would do this for free. It helps justify what we're doing, but we're not doing it for the money. Okay, you've heard for a number of years that there is a storm cloud on the horizon, that we have an officiating crisis on hand. And it's true. But I think what has been missing from that is the context. So I'm going to share with you what the data says and why there's this concern. So we asked officials, how much longer do you plan yourself on officiating? And over a third said that they are going to be done in the next 6 years. That's 150 officials that they themselves say, I'm going to hang it up, I'm going to be done. That doesn't account for injury, job change, moving out of our area. There's a lot of things that can happen. So that number is actually probably much higher than 150, but that's officials themselves think they're going to be done. To really be fully staffed in the OK Conference, we need around 485 officials. That's an 11% shortfall that we have today. It's already having some trickle-down impacts where we have some crews having to work double headers because there aren't enough officials available on a particular night. Officials also work other conferences, so it's not like all of those OK Conference officials are just working OK Conference games. So they could be working up north or down south or elsewhere. We have officials that are probably working above their current skill set. That's not ideal for your games, and coaches, you probably see that. And our top crews who are in demand are stretched. The other interesting stat is how many officials are we getting every year? So on average, over the last 5 or so years, we've been averaging around 36 new officials. But the data from the MHSAA, and we see this here locally as well, is we only keep half of those officials. And with the pay increase that we had a couple years ago, we're actually only keeping around a third. So by 2030, we are projecting a 26% shortfall. That there are going to be problems with not having enough officials. We need to average 40 new officials every year that stay, which means we really need 80 new officials every year. Over the next 5 years, if we average 80, we'll get to our mark of being fully staffed by 2030. How we get there depends on us working together. So if we look at the roadmap of how do we get towards 485 officials, one would be recruiting more. One road that we can go down and discuss is recruiting more. The other would be understand why we're driving folks away. So I'm going to talk through these key areas. So coaches and officials, this slide is really, coaches and ADs, this slide's really for you. If we asked officials, where did you get your start? I was a former player. A coach encouraged me. I started out as a high school student, or I was a parent of a player that finished playing. 5/8 say it has to do with something involved in the sport, which means coaches and AD, that's you. You have an opportunity to talk to these people. That's what got them engaged. You have an opportunity to speak to them differently than the MHSAA can or the officials groups can. You can reach these people directly. Another third came from officials. If we look at what age they started, the data indicates that same thing. So there's kind of 4 life events I break it out into. We have the group that starts as high school students or younger. So this is the group I started in. I started doing YMCA games over in Ione County when I was a kid. That's where I grew up, and that's where I started my love of officiating. The second group is kids that are graduating, moving into college or first jobs where they're looking to supplement their income. The next group would be people that are graduating from college or establishing professional life, and they're trying to figure out what their hobbies are going to be. They're looking for something to do. And then the last group would be those parents that are losing their kids at home. They're looking for something to do. My challenge and my flag would be coaches and ADs note most of the new officials we've gotten over the years come in that core age group of 18 to 23. So you reaching out to former players and saying, hey, have you considered giving officiating a try? Or graduating players or parents of players that are graduating, just plant the seed. That's all we're asking you to do. But I'm gonna go a little bit further. I'm gonna challenge the OK group a little bit differently. If we look at the number of officials that grew up in our region, 2/3 of our officials grew up in West Michigan, but only 2/5 came from OK Conference. So we showed you stats of the other conferences, the other regions. We're the largest conference, and majority of our officials didn't come from the OK Conference. We should all be uncomfortable about that, and we should want more OK Conference schools. There are 41 programs with boys and girls programs. If each of those programs produces 1 official a year, we'll hit that 80 mark. 1 every year from every program. But I wanted to look at the data a little bit differently and go a little bit further. So this is specifically for coaches and ADs. We asked our officials, what high school did you graduate from in the OK Conference? Or if it's a consolidated school, what most likely would it be called? So you can see, not very many numbers. There's a number of schools we have no officials that came out of your school. Challenge. We also asked, when did you graduate? So I'm gonna pick on Northview, for example, bottom left. They have 1 official. Congratulations, Northview. But it's been 45 years since we've gotten another new official. If we take that magic 80 number and we fair share it, so Blaine, don't shoot me, or wherever you are, but East Kentwood, one of our largest schools, needs to produce 4 new officials every year. That's their fair share challenge. So coaches, take a look at these numbers. Those of you that have bigger student populations, the onus is on you because you have access to more students. We need your help in this area. Again, at least 1 from every program. Some of the bigger schools, we need more from you. But I don't want to also discount like what we were doing on our side. So you're going to hear from the WMOA in a couple minutes to talk about what officials associations do, but I want to give kudos to Megan. So this is not part of her job description to go out into the community and try to solicit, but this is something she's willing to do herself. So she's been going to the Women's Expo. She goes to high school career days. She's been going and putting up tables at our regional sites to try to recruit officials. Officials are trying. Coaches and ADs, we need your help to supplement. So that's the recruiting side of the path. Let's talk about why we're driving people away. There are 2 core reasons. One is the level of support that officials have for each other, and the other side is coaches and ADs, or I'm sorry, coaches and spectators. So we have found that there are 3 core reasons that officials are leaving. They say, I'm not getting support from associations. So you're gonna hear what Mark Lundvik says about the WMOA. Unclear assigning process, that's something we're working on. And then most importantly for officials, it's because their first experiences were terrible. They were put with an official who didn't want to work with them, who big timed them, who didn't help them, and were overly critical of them. So if you were an official working with a new official, be patient and work with them. We were all there at one point and we had somebody help and mentor us. We should not ever have a reason of official leaving because an official didn't help them. So officials, challenge yourself. Parents and spectators is the other core reason. So the National Association of Sports Officials did some surveys over the last few years. Sportsmanship is on a decline, and the most issues from sportsmanship are driven from parents. None of us are surprised by that. Fans and coaches. If we think about the proven reasons that we've seen coaches causing problems, and we're going to focus on a couple different areas, but like if you look at what Jim Harbaugh's doing, I would say he doesn't treat officials very well. If you look at Tom Izzo, he's pretty regularly angry. Those are not the people we probably seek to emulate. Maybe their success, but maybe not their behavior of officials, especially high school officials. And it's not happening in West Michigan. We have had issues. Most of you are aware of the bad situation that happened here in West Michigan last year. I think the core stat I want to take away and leave with coaches is half of officials in America, and this is true in our area as well, have felt unsafe at some point. I have needed a police escort from a game. My wife asked me, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? We should never have to feel like we need a police escort from a game. Other MHSA identified reasons we're losing officials. It's coach behavior, it's spectator behavior. So just a couple stats, anecdotal stats. In 2019, a varsity player who was encouraged to come out and officiate, I would never want to officiate. I would never want to be a ref after seeing how my coach treats officials. So we need coaches to be our biggest recruiters, and yet they're seeing in their game experiences, I would never want to do that based on how I see officials get treated. There was an official that quit in 2016. The quote was, "It wasn't worth giving a night away from my family to go get screamed at during a 7th grade game by some psycho in the stands." So coaches and ADs, the ask here would be like, in those, we're going to talk about lower level games in a little bit, but please help us in those lower level games, and we need help with spectators. Okay, some frames of reference. So, I think we want to talk about the officials' accuracy, but let's start by grounding ourselves in what the best in the business do. What are the NBA and NCAA have as shooting percentages? So NBA shooting percentages, no contests, they miss a quarter of their shots. In regular play, it's under 50% that they make. Stats and statistics indicate that NBA officials miss 1 out of every 20 calls, NCAA officials 1 out of every 10 calls. What should we expect from our part-time officials? Now, this is not my slide to say we should not have high expectations of officials. It's more, I want to give you frame of reference. So when you are in a game and you see missed calls, okay, now you have a frame of reference of what NBA refs do and NCAA refs do. The other part I wanted to call out is officiating is complex. When you're out on the floor, you have to have so many different things in your mind, and you're running and you're trying to factor all these different things that are happening at the same time. I'm not looking for sympathy as an official here, but I want to note to coaches, like, it is complex. There are so many different things that we're running through simultaneously. We're trying to make sure we're looking at a lot of different things. My point is, it requires intense focus. So bringing this back to academia, it requires intense focus. So picture a student in a library trying to study, and then picture that student being screamed at by somebody in the stands or somebody behind them. AI apparently thought being screamed at ages you 20 years. I don't know what happened with that, but that was quite interesting. But just factor that in. Where we need the most help from coaches is actually not in varsity games. So varsity coaches, don't hear that as I don't need your help. But where we really need help is in the sub-varsity games. Those are the games where there's no one in the gym. The new official can hear every comment that's being made. They're new. The players stink. The upper left picture here is a girls' game. This is a high-scoring girls' game, 8-6, late in the 3rd quarter. These are tough games to officiate. And if the officials that we're getting in come in and are demeaned, there's some psycho in the stands calling for 3 seconds on every possession, it's a bad experience. So again, ADs, coaches, we need your help at the lower level. And the seed I want to plant with you is we need your help to talk to lower level coaches to make sure they understand they're probably the most important role in keeping new officials, because this is why we're losing them. But varsity coaches are not getting off that easy. Who's most responsible for improving sportsmanship? It's coaches. This is not Patrick Kane saying this. This is the data. I did pick and choose this data, but this is the data that says coaches you're most responsible, and it really starts at the top. So the varsity coach is the head of that program. Everyone looks to the varsity coach. How are they behaving? The people in the stands, they don't know the rules. If the coach is upset, okay, I need to be upset too. How is that coach treating players? How are the sub-varsity coaches watching the head of their program treat everyone? You are the head of the program, you set the standard, and so my challenge is to you, set that standard, set expectations. And body language is so important when we're dealing with officials. Do you want to be more like the coach on the left or more like the coach on the right? Is an official more likely to come talk to you based on which side you're on? Absolutely. I don't want to go talk to that coach on the right. Factor that in. So a couple more fun AI generated examples. Picture that official trying to keep everything in their mind. Coaches, you probably think you look like this. It actually probably looks a little bit more like that. And then you get the fans behind you all fired up, and this is sometimes how it might feel to an official, especially a new official. So just know you have the power to control what happens in that gym, sometimes more than we do based on your reactions. How do we treat others that we support? So I actually got this idea from Sam when I talked to him earlier this summer, but we're getting basically minimum wage to do this. If that person at Subway screws up your sandwich, do you go scream at them? Probably not. But somehow when we get to the gym, we get too fired up when we think about it. Thank you, coaches, for recognizing this and working on it. But officials, you have an equal part of this. If you go in and you have earmuffs on and you don't want to hear anything a coach has to say, or you have bad body language, that does not help communication. So together, we need to work together to make sure these experiences are good for everyone, especially setting the example for the younger coaches and those newer coaches that we get. And hopefully in 5 years, we'll be down the path towards 100 or 485 officials. Okay, with that, I'm gonna welcome Sam from the MHSAA. Sam Davis is, thank you. Sam Davis is currently the MHSAA Director of Officials with prior roles as teacher, coach, and administrator in the Lansing area for more than 35 years. Sam has also been a leading wrestling official in Michigan for over 4 decades, having done numerous state championships. After being a wrestling state champion himself in 1969, please join me in welcoming MHSAA Director of Officials, Sam Davis.
That is hard to follow. I mean, that was very, very impressive. And I got to tell you, as I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm thinking about Officiate Michigan Day 2026, and I'm saying, how can I get Patrick to do something for Officiate Michigan Day to 2,500 officials? And I'm going to be calling you, my friend. That was really, really good, really good. Let me see if I can. All right. I have about 4, maybe 2 minutes to talk to you. And I just want to share a couple things with you in terms of officials and the things we try to share with our officials that we think makes a difference in how you do your job and how you are perceived by folks when you're out doing your job. The slide will be just a little bit different because I put that together for about a 30-minute presentation, and I was told that I don't have 30 minutes, so I cut it down a little bit. And when we look at it, I want to know how are officials seen and what matters most in officiating. You know, there's perceptions on all sides of the fence. And one of the things you need to know is that athletes have a perception of officials. And that perception of officials is that you are the ultimate authority figure. You're the one out there that makes the call, that determines whether or not that was a first down, or whether it was traveling, or whether it was a takedown. You are seen as the ultimate authority figure, and because of that, you should be the symbol of fairness and justice. This is what all the athletes should see when they see you. And then coaches look at you, and how do coaches see you? Well, hopefully coaches will see you as a partner, that we are both involved in making sure that we provide a very consistent application of the rules, and that we come there together for the same thing, to give our athletes an opportunity to compete, be safe, and enjoy what they're doing. And then how does the community look at you? As officials, the community should be looking at you as the one who maintains integrity, the one that's most important there for showing that, yes, this is fairness. I don't care who wins or loses. I just want to make sure that we are fairly applying the rules and giving everybody a fair opportunity. So that's the perception from all sides. We're going to go a little bit faster here. So how are we judged? We're judged on the knowledge of rules. Coaches, parents, athletes want to know that you know the rules. And when you know the rules, it makes it a whole lot easier for them, because isn't that question of, am I doing it right? They know they're doing it right because the official is saying that they're doing it right. And so that expectation is a high expectation, but it's a fair expectation because you are the one that is employed to do just that. Make sure that you know the rules. But it's also important for officials to understand the spirit of the rule. It's not always just the black and white of the rule, but there is a spirit of the rule. So it's important for you to know that, but one of the best ways for you to know that is not just working by yourself, but working together in teams and partnerships. And that's where I want to lift up association leaders and associations and trainers. Part of your responsibility is to help everybody understand that there's not just the rule, but there's also what was the intent of the rule. What were we trying to get across at that particular point in time when that rule was put together? And then when you understand that, you will still fairly enforce the rules, but you will also understand that the spirit and the meaning behind it, and so that you can do a much better job of that. So we're also judged on our consistency, and Patrick talked about that. Yes, we look for that, not only from coaches, but officials. And not that you're just consistent yourself, but we should be consistent from spot to spot, place to place. It doesn't matter whether you are calling a game on the east side of the state or the northern part, whether you're down in zone 1 or 2, it shouldn't matter. We should be consistent. We should all know what a travel is. We should know what it means to carry. We should know what it means, is that a takedown or isn't that a takedown? And part of that, again, and I want to lift up associations, when you're sitting around and talking with other officials, when you're banging that out together, then you'll get a very good understanding of what it means to call this there, call that there. One of the things I really disdain hearing is that, well, you know what? If we go on the east side, they're going to call it like this, and we go on the west side, they're going to call it like that. Why should that be the case? There's not an east side rule and a west side rule. There's one rule, the National Federation MHSAA rule, so that we should be consistent in that. We're also judged by our contest management. How do we manage what's going on out there on the court, on the field, on the wrestling mat? Do we have a sense of composure? Do we understand that, yes, the crowd may be a little bit more over this time than they are on that time, and what do we need to do? Are we good at reading the crowd and reading the environment and knowing what it is that we have to do to make sure that we have a fair application of the rules, a fair interpretation of them, that each team gets a fair opportunity? Not equal, you can't be equal because not everything is equal, but you need to make sure that you're being fair. How are we judged? We're judged on our physical fitness. Do you know that sometimes, I'm sorry? There must have been the echo. Do you know that sometimes parents, coaches, even athletes look at the official and wonder, why is that official out there? Are they going to be able to make it the 2.1 miles up and down? Or are they going to need an AED right away? It's important for us to make sure that we are maintaining not only our physicalness, but also we need to maintain our mental strength and our physical strength. We're also judged on our integrity and character. And officials, that means we need to reflect impartiality and humility. Don't just say, I don't care who wins. Show that you don't care who wins by being fair and impartial. Officials, have the courage to make the right calls. Don't put yourself in a position where you say, well, you know, that's Will McCoy and he's going to be a Division I basketball player, so I can't call that. But there's Sam Davis and he's number 7 off the bench. I'm going to call that against him. No, have the courage to make the difficult calls regardless of who's out there, because that's being the fair, that's being impartial, that's being a person of integrity. And be respectful in your communication. Know how to talk to people. And don't necessarily say, I want people to talk to me the way I talk to them, because that's not always the best thing to do. But make sure that you are respectful in your communication. Not really following the slides, but I want to just go ahead and hit you with just a few more things, and I'm going to get out of your way. In talking to officials, I want you to be aware of 5 pitfalls that really come into play. And let me get that slide there real quick. I'm not as slick as Patrick was on this, but let me get back to it. Becoming partisan. Officiate the game, not the teams. Officials, one of the things that bothers me as a director of officials is when I hear somebody say, hey, I want to make sure I'm on that big game. I'm on that big game. Every game that you officiate is a big game to those participants. Those kids who step out there on that court, on that field, on that mat, on that track, it's a big game to them. And if you give them the sense that it's not a big game for you, they feel like they're being slighted. And no youngster who's out giving themselves should be slighted. Losing your cool, second pitfall. Maintain your professionalism and a calm exterior. And yes, sometimes coaches can get a little bit hostile. Sometimes parents can become hostile. We even have athletes who become hostile, but it's important for you as the official, wearing the stripes or the yellow shirt in the soccer, or whether you're wearing the gray pinstripes in wrestling, to maintain your professionalism, maintain your cool and calm exterior. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't some nights where you're bubbling on the inside, but you've got to keep that under control because, again, who's looking at you? The athletes are looking at you. The coaches are looking at you. The community is looking at you. Here's another pitfall. Don't make it about you. When you start making it about you, you forget that the game belongs to who? To the athletes. It doesn't belong to you. There isn't one parent, and you think about it. Let me ask you, how many of you know that spectators pay to come and see you officiate? There isn't one spectator that comes to see you officiate, unless it's your wife or your spouse or whatever, and then you probably get them in free anyway. But nobody pays to see you work. It's about the athletes. Number 4 pitfall is neglecting your health. Officiating is physically demanding. Thank you again for sharing that statistic. That means you got to get your rest. It means you have to eat right. It means you have to exercise. If you don't take care of yourself, someone else will be taking care of you. And they get paid to do that, and they usually have on a white coat or they drive a car that has, a bus that has lights on it, and they have gurneys. Don't have someone else taking care of you. You need to take care of yourself in terms of your health. And the last thing I want to say to you in terms of the pitfall is number 5, not admitting a mistake. Humility is the key. We make mistakes. It would be really, really, really good for you when you make a mistake out on the court, out on the football field, or whatever, to say, I was wrong. You can take a flag back. I threw that. That wasn't offsides. I made a mistake, okay? If you do that, then all those people who are watching you, the athletes, the coaches, and the community, will again know that we have people of integrity, and that's what officials are all about. I want to throw in 2 plugs for you that I want you to do. I sent out something in our listserv earlier in the year. It's called What's My Why? And it's a recruiting tool, but it's also something I want to use at our Officiate Day in July 2026. And it's been sent out there, and I will resend it. I want you, when you have the opportunity, whether you're on the basketball court or you're on a football field or wherever you are this year, take that video of yourself and tell us what's your why. Why do you officiate? I've received a number of really wonderful ones. I want you to do it too, because again, not only do I want to use that as a recruiting tool, I want other folks to see that the humanness of officiating, why you do it, but also want to use it as a recruiting tool. And I want others to understand why it's important for you. And last but not least, Officiate Day 2026 in Grand Rapids. We're expecting about 2,500 of our officials, and in conjunction with the National Association of Sports Officials and all those professional officials and collegiate officials coming in, we want you to help show that Michigan is number 1. And with our 2,500 or so officials to show up, we will be the number 1 Officiate State Day in the nation. In 2013, we had about 1,200, maybe 1,400. We want to show Michigan is number 1. My time is your time. Thank you.
Our next guest, Will McCoy, joined the MHSAA in 2021 and leads basketball and football administration. After growing up in North Carolina, Will became a student assistant at Wayne State before moving into teaching and coaching and later athletic director roles at Henry Ford Academy School for Creative Studies and Summit Academy in Romulus. Beyond the MHSAA, Will also serves as an active Big Ten football official. Please join me in welcoming Will McCoy.
All right, thank you, Patrick. Before I get into the topics I wanted to discuss, I just wanted you guys to know a couple things. One, it's really good to be here. Sam can probably attest to this, and I don't mean this in any way other than a compliment. It's good to be around normal people. In our office, You know, sometimes you kind of get lost in there, and I consider myself to be a normal person. So it's good to be around normal people, having normal conversations about normal stuff. So Patrick and Megan, you guys are fortunate to have two of the best. The Western Michigan Officials Association is one of the best in our state. They do it great. So when they asked me to be here, it's particularly Megan, when she says jump, I say how high, right? She's awesome. You guys are really lucky to have her. As you saw in my little bio here, from North Carolina, and I think it's important before I get into my topic so you know who I am and where I come from, because I'm probably going to say some stuff in my slides that you're not going to be happy with. So I'm going to butter you up right now. I don't know any other way to be than who I am, and that's really honest and really straightforward. So I may say some things that you don't agree with. I'm okay with that too, but it's the honest to God truth, how I see it, and it's from my perspective. You asked me to come, this is what you get, right? So grew up in North Carolina Tar Heel fan, Washington Commanders fan. I grew up when they were the Redskins, so for all the Lions fans, yes. I was at the game last year. Oh my God, it was so glorious. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that in the office. But I'm a basketball coach at heart. I want you to know that, because as I go through some of my slides, I just want you to understand that my background comes from coaching. I have not officiated a high school basketball game in my life. I don't know whether you're supposed to be standing at the 28-foot line or the baseline, but I can tell if you're in shape. I could tell if you know what a travel is. I could tell if you know what a block charge is, right? So I don't have to be an official to know if you know what you're doing as an official, right? As a coach, I have far more understanding of what the expectations are for you as a coach, right? So I'm probably a little bit harder on coaches' behavior, because I've lived it. I understand what it's supposed to be like, right? And I have a pretty good background from a different perspective as an athletic director, an official, and also a coach. So current state of basketball, fortunate to have Dan Young here. When I go around the country and we talk to other directors of basketball in other states, and they talk about all of the issues that they have to deal with, I'm fortunate to have really good relationships with the Basketball Coaches Association and also the Michigan High School Football Coaches Association. So as a coach, just know that if you have an issue or there's concerns, go through the Basketball Coaches Association. That's the best way to get your concerns addressed to the MHSAA. Also, as an athletic director, go through the MIAAA. We have really good relationships with them as well. So if you're just sending me an email, right, and you're the one person that's having an issue, right, okay, we'll take your email. But if it's one school having this issue, we're probably not going to get a rule change that way, right? So it could be frustrating for you to think, well, nobody's listening. You have to get consensus, and it has to be an issue that more than one school throughout the state is experiencing. So just wanted to highlight the relationship we have. Also talk about the abuse of the 5-quarter rule, right? Most of you know that the 5-quarter rule is implemented to help small schools be able to field a freshman JV and or varsity team, right? And some schools are doing it that way, but quite a few, and I would venture to say majority of the schools are starting to abuse it and use it for other purposes, right? This past winter, last school year, most of you may be aware of this, but we had a incident where the student hit the game-winning shot in the freshman game. I'm sorry, the JV game, and then also the same kid hit the game-winning shot in the varsity game. So you tell me if that school is using the 5-quarter rule, right? If the best kids playing JV and varsity, we're kind of out of whack here, right? Sportsmanship, brawls, the decline in interest in girls basketball is an issue, right? Everybody, whenever I go somewhere and everybody wants to talk about the shot clock. Everybody wants to talk about public versus private. But there's really an issue with girls basketball right now, but nobody's wanting to address that. How are we addressing it that girls are far more likely to play volleyball than they are girls basketball? Right? Playoff assignments. Everybody thinks they're worthy of a playoff assignment. But this is the part that you're probably not going to like me. I don't owe you a playoff assignment. I owe the kids to put out there the very best officials that we have. That's who I owe it to. So you may not get a state final, right? Patrick said it. I'm fortunate enough and I fooled them enough that they let me work in the Big Ten Conference for football, right? I never worked the high school state finals game. Never worked the semifinal game in football, right? So it doesn't mean that you're not a good official. I think I'm pretty good. Doesn't mean you're not a good official if you don't get a state final game. But there's a process. I'll go over that process a little bit if I have time. But we're not giving out lifetime achievement awards. We're not, you've done it for 35 years. It's not your turn, okay? We're not giving it to you because it's your turn. We owe it to the student athletes to put the very best officials out there, and that's what we're trying to do, okay? So if you ever want to know where you stand, you can reach out. But Sam and I joke about this. There's this saying, I don't know if you've ever heard it, right? It's officials, there's two things officials think they're really good at that they're probably not as good as they think they are, right? Having sex with their partners and how good they are as officials, right? So if you want to know how good you are with your partner, ask your partner. You might not like the answer you get. If you really want to know how good you are as an official, you can ask me. If you send me an email or you call me, you might not like the answer you get, okay? So I'm just telling you, reach out, right? We do playoff assignments based on recommendations. Like Pat said, we get recommendations from the assigners and associations. We have no way of seeing every official in the state work basketball. I can't physically go out and watch every official work, right? So I have to rely on Patrick, I have to rely on Megan, I have to rely on all the assigners and association people from throughout the state. So we do use those recommendations. Now, a recommendation, and I'm gonna be really honest with you, a recommendation from Megan and Patrick goes farther than some other recommendations. And I'm okay saying that, right? Your ratings matter, right? How you're rated, how you're seen by the coaches matter. And I know that's a big issue for some of you to think, well, why do we use ratings? We have to use something, right? And is the system perfect? No. But if you look at your rating and if you look at how you rank versus other officials in your area, it bears out to be pretty accurate, to be quite honest, right? And communication and behavior, we'll talk about that. One thing I want to say to you about communication and behavior is, as game officials, again, I see it on both sides. As game officials, you have to, the biggest difference I see from younger officials to experienced officials to Division I officials, particularly in football, right? The difference between a D1 or D2 official and a D1 official or somebody doing high-level football is the communication part. How you communicate with coaches, how you interact with coaches, the game management part of it, right? We don't expect game officials to take crap from coaches. I'm gonna say that again. We're not expecting you to take crap from coaches. However, we are expecting you to communicate with them. If they ask you a question, answer the question. And just because they ask you a question doesn't mean that they're being disrespectful, right? It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have questions asked towards you, right? But coaches have to understand that there's a way to do it that's respectful as well, right? There's a partnership, as Sam spoke about, that we expect from coaches and officials. And ultimately, you have to understand that we're all grown-ups and we should respect each other, right? To Patrick's point, I always make the point when I'm doing a presentation about officials, coaches have to put themselves in the shoes of others, right? Just imagine if your daughter or your mother or your wife was at work getting yelled at, because that's essentially what we're doing. We're yelling at somebody while they're working, right? And that's not acceptable. So what the future holds, 5 divisions. I know people are chomping at the bit to talk about the shot clock and 5 divisions. Just know this, right? That there are some people out there talking about the private schools, they're winning all the championships and the public schools aren't winning any, right? And we need a 5th division. We need to separate publics and privates. The data doesn't necessarily support that, and we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about the shot clock, regional seating. The regional seating proposal that came from BCAM, the reason that it didn't get much support is because there were certain parts of the state that would have the bracket situated a different way than other parts of the state. They didn't present a proposal where everybody in the state, the bracket was structured the same. So that wasn't going to be approved. So I don't know what the future holds for that. I know that was on the survey that Patrick sent to me. So most of these are topics that came from you that you guys wanted to hear about. So I'm trying to address those. And again, another one that's coming up is 5 quarters over 2 days for basketball, right? So here's the data for 5 divisions in public versus private. Those 2 things go together. Why are we connecting those 2 things? So what our data suggests is that the more divisions you have, the more likely that private schools will win the lower level divisions, right? So just last year, 13% of the boys basketball teams were private schools. And 11% of girls basketball teams were private schools. So over the last 5 years, teams that qualified the Breslin Center break down like this, right? So for boys basketball, Division I qualifies for the semifinal at 3%. Division II is 8% for boys basketball. Division III is 12%, Division IV is 27%. So 27% of the people who qualified the Breslin Center are private schools in Division IV, which lends us to believe what? The smaller the division, the more likely that a private school will win. So if we add another division in basketball, what's probably going to happen? We're lending it to a private school winning even more championships. So again, people talk about this stuff. Be careful what you ask for, right? Girls basketball, Division I qualifiers the last 5 years, 2% at the Division I level, 9% at the Division II level, Division III level, 10%, and then again, Division IV, 24%. And then what we've also, we had a committee, a task force that we put together back in March, it was April, about 20 people from all over the state. And what we found is when people started realizing where they fell on that division list, they didn't really want another division. So it's also really just based on how they land and what happens to them locally, whether they're in favor of 5 divisions or not. 35-second shot clock. As we sit right now, there's 32 states that have it, 19 say no. I think Michigan is farther away than we think, and that's because of the athletic directors. And I talked to Dan, me and Dan have a great relationship. I've been honest with them. I think, this is probably not a popular public opinion, but I do believe that at some point we're probably gonna have a shot clock in Michigan. How soon we get there will be based on how long it takes the athletic directors to get there. Is there data to support the need for a shot clock in Michigan? I sent an email out, I think it was in the summertime, to all the states that have shot clock. And I asked them for their data. What data do you have to suggest your need for the shot clock in your state? We hardly got any support. It was all feelings, right? We feel like it makes the game better, right? So BCAM is working really, really hard on a proposal for our December the 10th meeting. We'll talk about it again on December the 10th. We'll talk about the divisions, 5 divisions on December 10th. Just know that we hear all of it. We don't ignore any of it. But data matters. What we're really doing matters. And I always tell Dan this, and again, this is one of those things that's probably unpopular, right? The Basketball Coaches Association is planning to put together a video, and on that video, they want to get Tom Izzo, and they're going to get the college coach from this place and the college coach from that place. And I don't know if that's a good idea, because asking college coaches if they support the shot clock, sure, they're going to support the shot clock in Michigan, right? But for us to change a rule because we feel like it's going to prepare 2 to 3% of the kids for college, why would we change a rule for 3% of the kids? Our job is not to prepare a kid to be able to play college basketball. That's not our job as MHSAA, right? I would argue that's not your job as the high school basketball coach. You may think it's your job, right? How many of you basketball coaches have 10 kids in your program going to play college basketball? Right? So we got to look at the scope of what we're doing, the reason why we're doing it. Again, probably one of those unpopular opinions that I just gave. Again, where we stand, the last time that we did a survey, 63% of ADs not in favor of the shot clock at the varsity level only. When you include sub-varsity and varsity, that number goes up to over 70% unfavorable. So you have to change the hearts and minds of the athletic directors if we're going to get there. And the reason I say it's going to happen at some point, if you look at this map, at some point this number is going to be 40 on this end and single digits on the right. At some point, we're going to get there, right? So, again, we talked about no compelling data nationally, no compelling data here in Michigan. The last 3 years, every basketball game we played at the Breslin Center, we had someone track every possession. And the average possession at the Breslin Center was 13 to probably about 18 seconds. And even the games when the point differential was under 10 late in the fourth quarter, we did not see a significant rise in teams holding the basketball. Now, the argument is, well, those are the best teams in the state. I argue we probably need to make rules for the better teams and not, but again, not very popular. We talked about the rules committee on December the 10th. If you have something that you want us to address at the basketball committee, reach out again through the BCAM, through the Athletic Association, the MIAAA, and we can get that on the agenda. Lastly, we talked about regional seating and 5 quarters. There's no support. And one of the reasons why I know coaches want to know, can we play a basketball game on Thursday and then also have that kid do the 5th quarter on Friday? If we allowed that to happen, a kid could end up playing 44 nights of basketball, right? Where they're allowed 22 games. So there's no support in our office for a student being able, or for us changing the rule to where a kid would play a basketball game on Thursday and then play the fifth quarter on Friday. That's just too much time away from studying, being able to get home at a reasonable hour. So that's all I have. I tried to go as fast as I could. Reach out anytime you have any questions for me at the office, and it was really good to be here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. We're now going to shift gears, and we're going to hear from resources that coaches and officials have. So we're going to start with the WMOA. Mark Lundvik is in his fourth decade of officiating. Beyond basketball, he is also a leading soccer official in the region. After growing up in Chicago, he moved to West Michigan and worked for MC Sports for many years. For the last 8 years, he has served as WMOA basketball chair. That's what he's going to talk to you about today. He's also previously been the VP and president of the WMOA. Mark also worked basketball state semifinals in 2013 and 2025. Mark?
Thanks, Patrick. Okay, so the West Michigan Officials Association, we have over 400 members between football and basketball. Approximately 250 of those officials do basketball. About a third of those do both sports, basketball and football. We are a training association. That's our core mandate. We are all about making sure that we work with new officials as well as experienced officials and work through the process of being a good official for either football or basketball. The program chair, my position, board position, we're dedicated to the study and training of the rules and mechanics of the game. We conduct 6 scheduled meetings throughout the season. 2 in November are in person, and the rest of the season are via Zoom. We've found that over the years, the Zoom process allows us to get to more officials. We videotape those Zoom meetings. The officials are able to look at those meetings within a week after we've had the live Zoom meeting, and it just gives more officials a chance to look at the rules and the mechanics that we've talked about. We use huddle game videos. We ask every coach, every varsity boys and girls coach for their game videos after every Tuesday night and Friday night. We ask them to provide that for us so we can review those and talk about things that went well and talk about things that did not go well. In addition to that, we have various resources. We use RefQuest and their videos, Officials Institute, Better Official, as well as using resources from NASO and Referee Magazine. Our chief goals, rules knowledge and updates, greater consistency and awareness and discussion of those situations. Recruiting and mentorship coordinator, Scott Stabler is our person handling that. Point person for communication from the state regarding recruiting and retention of officials. He's responsible for our rookie sessions. We're trying to get as many new officials on the court for preseason scrimmages so that they can get on the court experience and get to understand what they're getting into. If they haven't done it at some other level, they need to know what are they getting into. And Patrick has shown all kinds of stats. Last year we had 57 officials register as new officials for basketball. This year, 17 of those have signed back up. Officials from 2 years ago, going into their third season, we had 77 officials. Out of those 77, 27 are still officiating. So for all the reasons Patrick mentioned before, we're trying to work on that retention factor. That seems to be the biggest challenge. Basic play calling principles. So 2 of the big themes we're going to talk about this year in our meetings will be stay humble and work the process. So here we're talking about play calling principles. I'll go through this very quickly, but we expect the officials to work the process. Be in the right position, find the trouble, judge the contact. Was it marginal? Was it illegal? Let the play finish. Let the play run out. Different issues with on-the-ball defender, catch-and-shoot plays, three-point shooters, secondary defender, block charges. We received a lot of this information from Jeff Spadowski with the MHSAA at a clinic they conducted this past summer at Grand Valley. So these are the processes that we expect everybody to go through. Find the ball defender, find their foot. Which foot's the pivot foot? Did they release the ball before their pivot foot moved? Three-point shooters, follow them up, follow them down. Did they get to the ground, and how did they get to the ground? Block charge, so traveling, block charge. Two biggest calls for officials throughout the season at every level. Did they see it right? Did they work the process at making that call correctly? So these are all things that we'll talk about this season in our meetings. Judge the contact, what did the fouler do wrong? RSBQ, rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness. In a game between Rockford and Hudsonville, rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness might be different than a game between Godwin Heights and Kellogg'sville. So we're trying to make sure that the games are fair for those players at all of those schools and make sure we're judging everything properly. Judging the style of play, the level of competition. I've got a buddy that works middle school games. Coach will ask him, wasn't that traveling down there? His answer is, yes, it was. Goes down to the other end, wasn't that traveling down there? Yes, it was. So you know you could blow your whistle almost every trip in a middle school game, but you're trying to get the game played, let the kids play, and let them learn throughout it. Not that he doesn't ever call it, but he needs to be conscious of what's going on in that game. Let the play finish, start, develop, finish, make your decision. Keep air in your belly, not in your throat. Eliminate the weak and ones. And here's the one video, right? Watch it again. All right, so this is just an example of the things that we'll work with, the huddle videos offline. We'll go through these videos for an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes. We'll send videos out throughout the season in between games. We need our officials to be monitoring the process. How did the player get to his spot? Did he establish legal guarding position? Which was his pivot foot when he caught the pass? These are the things we need them to be going through on the process. As, again, you heard from both Will and Sam and Patrick, communication, stay humble, be humble, communicate, and let's move on with the game, respecting everybody involved with the game. So again, good luck to everybody this season. We're here to help out. Ask the officials to call us when they get a chance.
Okay, one last thing before I have the BCAM group come up. I wanted to recognize the officials associations do a lot in the community, and I don't think the coaches know necessarily about this. Many of you are aware that we honor coaches for AD and Coach of the Year, but the Officials Association over the last several years has given over $110,000 to charity. We recognize scholarships to boys and girls players in the community, and then more recently we've been really involved in the West Leonard Hart Foundation, giving AEDs to schools that need them. That's saved lives of officials recently in our area. So we do a lot. I want to give kudos to the WMOA, who's not going to go get the kudos themselves. I want to make sure coaches know that we do this. Now I'm going to shift gears to the BCAM. So Dan Young is the executive director, and Tyler Hersey is the chairman of the Basketball Officials Communications Committee. You have bios. For the purpose of time, I'm just going to have them come up. You have their bios in the programs, so please look at those. It's really special that BCAM has made the way over here. This is a drive for both Dan and Tyler, so please join me in welcoming them. Thank them for coming. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to double mic it because we're going to tag team and do this together. There's two slides that, first of all, thank you, Patrick. This is awesome. We will show up anywhere you, what do I hit again to? Okay, that's not what I want. Okay, I coached for close to 30 years, all different types of situations coaching. I am humbled and honored to be the executive director of BCAM. It is a passion of mine. And We are involved with two things. We came up with this, and it's the theme that's been going on the whole night, is that when you show up to a game, you've got a group of kids that are about to play, you've got two coaches with their staffs, you've got three officials, and then you have the crowd. We're all there for the same reasons. Is to do our best to coach, help the kids, have a great night, win or lose, deal with all of that, and then go home, regroup, and do it again the next day. And this has been what we've been talking about for years now. And it means a lot to us to have great relationships with our officials. Our committee has been around for over 25 years, or right at 25 years. Early 2000s we started. So officials and coaches get on calls. Coaches, we need more coaches actually to be on the Zooms. We Zoom 3 or 4 times a year. Tyler will fill you in on that. But that has been an important thing, and it is really why all of us do what we do. It's for having a great night. When you go to a game and you have a great night, you play well, you win or lose, it's great, you walk away like, wasn't that unbelievable? And you go home and you just can't. So I will say over and over and over, it's great to be a coach. It's an honor to be a coach. It's a great responsibility to be a coach. It's the best thing in the world you can do. It's not easy, but it's 100% worth it. It's 100% worth it. And then the other thing is, sorry, let me go back here, is when I was coaching, we would have problems with our guys our players trying to officiate, or trying to coach, or trying to play at the same time. I've caught myself trying to officiate, getting in the way of my coaching. So we came up with this years ago, and it's been a great theme, I think, because it simplifies it. Any coach that's worth anything, that does a really good job, simplifies it for the player, teaches it well, and then they can play without thinking about it, and they can do the best they can and have the most success. This simplifies it every time you step on the court. Coaches just coach. Players just focus on playing and let the officials officiate. And now, we added the last couple of years, spectators, just spectate the game. Just come on, seriously. Because I've gone to so many games now that I'm not coaching, and I sit in the stands and I have to get up and move, or I start talking to people and say, just let them play, whatever. I get fired up. But think about that as you're working with how many coaches are here tonight? I'm just curious. Okay, a good number of them. Nice to meet you. If you are not a member yet, it's easy to join. You can join as a head coach for $30, non-head coach for $15. School special is the way to go. It's $90 for the whole school. You can get up to $15 or $45 per gender. If you sign everybody up, have your managers and have all your assistants and middle school people sign up, it's less than $5 per person. We've been the largest association for going on 15 straight years at 5,500 members. We include everyone. We have college coaches that are members of BCAM. We're the only state in the country that does that. And we include everybody else because we want them to hopefully, get a chance to coach someday. Lastly, we have an Aspiring Coaches Academy every spring. We're going on our 5th year. We've had 120 or so coaches go through it in the first 4 years. Over 20 have gotten head jobs. If you have anybody in your program that you think, they don't have to be a head coach next year, but if you think they have that, you know when somebody is going to maybe have that opportunity if they would like, send them to the academy. It's so good. We do 2 Zooms. Mike Masucci, Billy Schellenbarger, who's Mike Masucci's a former coach, and he's on our board, and he does our podcast. If you haven't checked out our podcast, I think we're on 22 or 23. I never thought it would be any good. When Masucci and them asked me to do it, I go, come on, but we've had some unbelievable. We're doing Chris Oliver tomorrow night. He was on, how many people were at the clinic? Then we talked to, did you hear Chris Oliver? He was great. I'm not coaching and I was taking notes. So we're trying to give back, give you as much information as we can. But the Aspiring Head Coaches Program, once those 25 or so have gotten jobs, we've mentored them over the years, and we've tried to help them stay in it because we know that that 5-year window, if they don't make it to 5 years, they'll be out. So thank you. Thanks for having us. Tyler's going to talk a little bit about our association, or our committee.
So here are the current members of the BOCCC. As Dan mentioned, we meet 3 to 4 times a year. Based on what we talk about in those meetings, we will get messaging out to our Coaches Association members, which is 5,500 coaches. A lot of the things that Patrick mentioned earlier in his talk are things that we have talked about extensively in our meetings. And coaches, we are looking for more coaches to be a part of this committee. The meetings are Zoom meetings, so please reach out if you would like to be a part of it or have anything that you would like us to discuss. I'd like to address the coaches. Remember that you set the tone in the gym with your words and your actions. Remember that for this year. Officials, you have the integral role of enforcing the rules of the game in a consistent and fair manner. And athletic directors, you create an environment where coaches and officials can be at their most effective. So to everyone here, let's be cohesive and passionate in order to provide a positive experience for the girls and boys basketball players in the state of Michigan. Thank you.
One last thing. I'm sitting next to Will. I wish he would have stayed here. We're watching the Rockford-Wayne girls game. Unbelievable game. Till about the 4-minute mark in the fourth quarter. One team was up about 11 or 12. And he says to me, man, this is hard to watch. I go, oh, really? It is. Exactly, it is. So we polled 2,100 coaches responded to our survey about shot clock. 75% wanted it. They polled, and you saw what it's all about. So you've got to talk to your athletic directors. Our proposal is mainly to educate athletic directors. Coaches want it, players want it. I mean, some coaches might not want it, but most want it. We're going to educate the athletic directors on how easy it is. Everything's back to 35. It's nothing like college and pro. And it's fairly easy to administer, and it keeps the flow of that game. Instead of playing keep away in games and waiting for the game to end and foul, it flows right to the horn. And we think that is, and the whole world is using the shot clock. It said 30, what did he have, 31 and 19? I couldn't see over here. 32. It's actually 34 because we sent it out to I serve on a national high school board. So it's actually 34. The other 13 have proposals on the plate, on there. We're going to get it. It's just a matter of us being the last state in the country to get it. I think Indiana will probably win that, but Indiana will for sure win that. But we don't want to, it's coming, so let's prepare for it. Let's educate everybody. And if you think it's something we should have, you got to talk to your athletic directors. Any questions for us? All right, have a great night.
Thank you. All right, bear with us. We're gonna make it through this. I know this has been a lot of information so far. There are 2 key sections. I'm gonna walk you through assigning, and then we're gonna talk to the panel. So really quickly, everyone wanted to understand what the assigning process looks like for the OK Conference. The number 1 request by far, as I previously mentioned, we must have the best available crews on the toughest games. Will said the same thing. But that doesn't mean every game's not important. It's just for those biggest games, the coaches want to say and who's the best available, they want those officials there. There's also feedback from coaches and ADs that the wealth needs to be spread. All the best officials can't be only in the OK Red, for example. And there wasn't clarity on how assigning affected, or our ratings affected assigning. So we're going to talk you through this. Coaches, you may not have seen this. This is what an official sees when you rate at the MHSAA. Look at that 3.71. That's what the official sees. That was the net rating they got. They cannot, by design, see your rating by game. There's pros and cons to this. The pro is it's confidential. The official is not going to be able to hold a grudge against you knowing that you gave them a bad rating. The con is the official can't tie your rating to any game. We see one number. We don't see numbers by game, and that's kind of a miss right now. Assigners also don't see game-by-game ratings. We see one number. So we don't know which coach said what. So we're going to talk what we're going to do about that. So the assigning process takes a couple different parts. There is a new process that we are the only only conference doing this in Michigan right now, and it's unique, and the state's watching what we're doing. It is step one, we get the schedules from all of the schools, and then we send a survey out, Patrick Kane and his surveys, send a survey out to all the coaches asking, help us identify the most important games to you. Every school has an opportunity to do this, every gender has an opportunity to do this, and what we do is we get that feedback back, and we create a game score. So every game gets a score on likely how difficult is it going to be. ADs and coaches have an ability to say, these are our most important games. And what ends up happening is you get this game score. And this is an example I'm pulling an example from December 16th. What you will see is Muskegon and Rockford have both circled, this is our most important game of the year. That game naturally flows to the top, and it gets a really, really high score. That signifies to Megan and I, we need to make sure we have one of the better crews available on this game. I think that there's a couple key notes here. It's not all OK Red games up there. It is spread across the divisions. Girls' games get equal treatment to boys. There's ways we do this. Every coach, if you respond to our survey, we're going to know that you have an important game and it's going to get prioritized. If both coaches say that game is equally important, like you will see down on the Godwin-Belding game, both coaches have said this is one of our top 5 games, it moves up. Okay, so that's the game score process. It takes a lot of time, but we do it because it's what you're asking for. The second piece of this is how do we tier crews? So again, it's all about the data. We get aggregate ratings from the MHSAA, and then we take in assigner tracking. So has a coach made a comment about an official positive or negative? Is there knowledge about the capabilities of that official? What is that official's experience? Do they do higher level games? Have they been recognized that they can do higher level games? And what are the other feedback that we get from observers? The OK Conference uses observers to go watch film or go to games. What are association leaders saying? What are trainers saying? And what are veteran officials saying? New, you're going to have a new tool, coaches, to make sure that we aren't just using an MHSAA number, but we're going to be able to see your data game by game, and we're going to talk about that in a second. We then take all the feedback and the data, and we tier the crews. So crews are all put into 5 tiers. Tier 1, which is our top tier of crews, is approximately 10 crews. Those crews move up and down. We had several crews move up, we had several crews move down this last year. Tier 3, I'll move to tier 3, is around 50% of officials, and then tier 4 and 5 are either officials with frankly low ratings, they're new, or other things have happened, and then there are a good number of independents. So we talked, there's 435 officials, 71 crews, it's only 213 officials. There's a really good group of independents that don't have a crew that fill in when somebody has to get subbed out. Then, last step, we attempt to place crews based on score. So we've identified the top games, we identify the tiering of officials, and officials start getting placed. There's a special attempt not to have a team see the same officials more than twice in a season, and definitely not in consecutive games or weeks. We try to do that with a caveat. If you work games in other conferences, if you work showcase games that Megan or I don't assign, we don't have control over that. So for example, there were several coaches that told us, my top game of the year is over in Detroit. Megan and I can't do much about that. So when you get the survey back, just note, we need to know what your top game is in the OK Conference that we can help control. How are we driving accountability? So coaches, you probably don't know this is happening, but 2 years ago, we started asking all crews to fill out a post-game survey. How did that game go? Did the coach get ejected? Did the coach get a warning? Did the coach follow the rules? Officials are providing feedback about you. And starting this year, at the end of the season, we're going to be providing that feedback to the ADs. What was the coach's score? Okay, officials have the ability to score you now, and that's going to be, you're going to be able to, your AD will be able to compare that to all other coaches in the region. So officials have long complained, we always get rated, but we don't have the opportunity to give feedback. The OK Conference is going to have feedback from officials. It is critical, officials, please note, if you give warnings, if you give technicals, if there's an ejection, you have to write a report anyway, but we need that information, so please make sure you're filling that out. Now, we work closely with another coach in the region over the summer. because it was identified that the assigners couldn't see the ratings from the state. So I'm going to have Taylor come up, talk about this thing that he and I have collaborated on to a new process for 2025. Taylor?
Yeah, hold your applause, yeah. All right, JR, you can attest to this. When we were at Grand Valley in the GLIAC, we took 1 year where we assigned the official ratings, and then the next year we just didn't do it at all. And there was no change, there was no collaboration. Bill Eck didn't really seem to care one way or the other. So this is just a huge compliment to Patrick and the staff. Thank you for allowing us to work on this and have this collaboration. It's really important. It's going to look pretty similar. As coaches, we're pretty simple people. We want to kind of do things similar to the MHSAA rating system. This one's very similar. We kind of modeled it right off of that with just making a couple changes. As you can see, this is a Google form. It'll show up directly to you, which is really nice. You don't have to really worry about that. The big one is, the 24-hour rule. We use it with our parents at our school. It's important that, we give the 24-hour rule with the officials as well. I think they deserve that respect. So you will see this email automated to you the next day at some point. So just know it's coming, it's automated. Try to give it 24 hours, but it'll definitely be the next day. Then we're gonna rate the officials based on the context of the game. You can put in your email and then you'll have the officials' names, and I'll kind of walk through that here in a second. But we're just gonna rate it basically the way we do with MHSAA. With superior is gonna be like an A grade, above standard B grade, meets the standard C grade, marginal, D grade. This is exactly how it'll show up. So you're gonna get an email, it'll say, okay, conference right there. It'll have the exact, the game that you're gonna officiate. All you have to do is click the link and fill it out. Patrick, he's an AI wizard, so he's doing a really good job of pre-populating a lot of things. If for whatever reason it doesn't match up, so like this case, East Kentwood Hudsonville game, it'll already be in there. If it isn't, just make sure you don't fill that out. You email him to get the correct one. All you have to do is put in the team who won. This will be pre-populated, whether it's a normal crew or not. I know as coaches, sometimes we know that, sometimes we don't. That'll be in there, and then the official names will be in there as well. And then you'll have the rating, give the overall rating, communication of calls, hustle, effort, demeanor, presence, judgment. And this is the kind of the one nice thing that we don't always have on the MHSAA, where we can give specific feedback, not just if it's superior or below standard. So we know, like when we put below standard, we have to give a reasoning, but now we can actually put a superior and still give a reasoning. We've also talked to Patrick about specific things that you want to discuss, whether they're calls or a certain time in the game that you might have a disagreement in. This would be a good place to do it on the comment feedback section. I know Megan and Mark, they do a great job whenever, we contact them about a certain thing, because you want to find out, were we in the right or the wrong, which obviously as coaches, we're always right. But if they're going to explain why they made that call, that's a good place to do that right in the comment feedback section. And at the end of the season, Patrick will send you a report that will allow easy reference to support your uploading of the ratings. This will report to a comparison metric that we can see where you rate them, but also where our peers rate them. So, take away kind of that personal vendetta that you might have against an official. And then the data will feed into for next season based on what the averages and everything will be for what officials that we'll have. The biggest thing, and I get it, you got to fill it out. You got to participate. We as coaches, we have time to do it. I would say it takes 1 to 2 minutes. One question that I get a lot that I deal with, sometimes you don't know the name of the official and you have to go to their LinkedIn page or something to look them up. We're going to try to work on something where we can put a photo with the name as well, but feel free to reach out to ask who the official is. Don't just assume or guess. And that's pretty much all I got.
So thank you, Taylor. This was a collaborative effort. This is like coaches and officials working well together. This is a good thing. So no process is perfect. We will adapt and we will adjust. However, coaches, I want to take a moment and flag this. For those of you that are here, this is important. There have been a couple unintentional consequences, unintended consequences that are coming from this process. Since the game score process, we have a lot of your better crews on tougher games. And we're starting to see, like in those tougher games, you might be harder on those officials because you were expecting a lot in those games. So what we really need you to do is factor in like, okay, one of the top crews in the area, you might give them a 3 because you're upset about something that happened in that biggest game of yours. Whereas another crew might get a 5, but they were on a much easier game. We need you to balance the overall, we need you to balance it. So we don't want you to give too much credit to officials that are working lower level games and not penalize those that are working the best. We've started to see a dip in the ratings. Also, don't give ratings too easily as well. If you're going to give a top rating, the question you should be asking yourself is, do I want to see this crew or this official in my district final or the biggest game I have of the year? If the answer is no, then they probably don't deserve that top rating. And obviously don't penalize the entire crew. Okay, I'm going to fast forward, so if my panelists could start working their way up, we are going to move forward to the panel discussion, just in the purpose of time. So, I'm going to introduce the panelists. So we have 5 wonderful speakers that are coming. Megan, can you help us with the chairs, please? Jonathan Goey. Since 2021, Jonathan Goey has been the athletic director at Forest Hill Central, where he oversees 37 varsity sports, 150 coaches, and approximately 700 student athletes. He spent 15 years coaching basketball at both high school level and collegiate level before jumping into the business world, and then came back to be athletic director at Forest Hill Central. Erica Brown is currently the girls varsity coach at South Christian High School. She is a graduate of Flushing High School, where she was an all-state basketball player. She earned a scholarship to Eastern Michigan, and beyond being a 4-year starter, she helped that team secure an NCAA tournament berth back in 2024. She began her coaching career in 2007, and has, beyond being a head coach at South Christian, she's also been a head coach at Davison and Granville. Through this tenure, she's led multiple teams to regional semis and finals. Our boys coach is Eric Taylor. He's entering his 8th season as varsity boys head coach at Grand Rapids Christian with an overall record of 127-35. Under his leadership, the team has won numerous conference and district championships and was state runner-up in 2017 and in 2024. He was also awarded the WMOA Coach of the Year in 2024. Prior to Grand Rapids Christian, Eric coached at a variety of roles at Grand Rapids Community College on the women's side, and he's particularly proud of his efforts and his commitment to player development and character building. Those are our coaches and ADs. We also have 2 veteran officials joining us. Brandon and Bob, who most of you will know, have been veteran officials, and they also are involved in the boards on their local associations. Brandon's the current president of the USAOA, which is the officials association out along the Lakeshore and in Muskegon, and Bob Wojcik has been around forever, and I think most of us know them. Please welcome the panelists to the stage, and we'll ask them some questions.
No, nobody wants this going.
All right. We'll just turn it off for a second. Thank you guys for being here. So one of the things I really didn't have a perspective on, this question is one of the things I didn't have good perspective on is how much time coaches and athletic directors are putting into their vocation. Jonathan, specifically for you, I didn't understand how many teams, coaches, players, and parents you deal with on top of the many nights away from home you have. Can you break that down? What are all the different responsibilities you have? What are the things that you would like everyone to understand that goes into being an athletic director?
Yeah, it's a great question. We, at Forest Hill Central, we have 38 varsity programs. We have about 150 coaches. It tends to pile up. I probably spend on average between 70 and 75 hours a week at schools or at an event. One of, I think, the trickiest parts of it is, of those 150 coaches, 4 of them are teachers in our building. So a lot of those coaches aren't teachers. A lot of them are professionals. They're out in the working world. And so it presents kind of a unique challenge to be able to connect with them, figure out ways to help with development and those types of things. On any given night, we're probably looking at a handful of different events going on, practices going on. We're trying to find clock operators, make sure that our opposing team and officials are there. We've got ticket takers, concessions. We're trying to figure out what's going on in the stands and make sure that all of this stuff isn't happening. There's a lot going on throughout the course of a night, for sure.
Thank you. Coaches, obviously we see that you invest one heck of a lot of time into each of your season. Can you kind of give us a glimpse into what happens in a season, or a week when you have games? And then what are you doing in the off season? How much time are you putting in? What are you doing in the off season? Either of you, go for it.
Well, for me and my program, we try to break it down in seasons. So obviously we have our preseason, then obviously we're in season, then we have our postseason, then we just kind of go into that spring season where a lot of the athletes are participating in AAU basketball. So just trying to get a schedule out to my players and my parents. I'm not even going to guess how many hours we spend, but I think the most important thing, we try to be very intentional in building relationships and also just developing players. And I think through that time, when I'm on the floor along with my coaches, it allows us to develop a relationship and a rapport with our players. And adjacent to that, we get to develop those players, not only just the skill development, I think that's a big aspect, but I think more importantly, the concepts. So I try to be holistic in our approach and how we develop players, and I think it's lended to our success. But as a veteran coach, I try to utilize my coaches as well and empower them to have those opportunities to develop as well. So as they move on, they can take that with them and be a better coach wherever they tend to go.
Erica, anything you want to add about your
Yeah,
off-season?
I think you can make it what you want it to be. I think minimum-wise, you obviously have your season and you have your off-season work, but I think the great coaches who pour into the relationships and the building of the program are going to spend a lot more time. You have your season, which is, November through hopefully March, right? You're playing in March, and then you get a little bit of a break, and then you're thinking about what's next already. It never really stops. But you then have your summer basketball, right? You're building a program. You want your youth in there. You want to get them excited to play for you. You want to build relationships with them as well. So you have your summer programs that you get yourself involved in and your players involved in. And then you have your shootouts, right? You have your JV and your varsity shootouts. So it doesn't stop, in the summer either. And then you get a little bit of a break in August. And then when school starts, you're right back at it again. And that's if you're really dedicating your time and really dedicating yourself to your program and your players, right? So you start your 4-mans, you do your open gyms, you really pour into what you want that program to be.
As an official, I think it's eye-opening. You put so much time in for 21 nights a year, hopefully more than that. But all these times, we understand why you're so passionate in those nights. From an official's lens, Bob and Brandon, can you talk about what time officials are putting in? How much are you putting into film review? What are you doing in the off season to prepare for the season?
I'll start. I'm a little bit older, so I'm in the gym. I'm retired from my regular job. I'm in the gym 5 days a week, working out just to stay in shape, flexibility in that. And then I kind of got a routine before each game. I'll actually watch my game. I've been blessed to work with every official out here I've been blessed to work with, and they're just great guys. So I'll go over my game that I previously worked, and look for my mistakes and what I can improve in. Then before the game of my next contest, I'll look at both teams just to see what their tendencies are on offense, defense. I feel as I got to work as hard as they do in practice before I get to the game because I owe it to them. Real quick, before I leave for a game, my wife knows that I'm 100% focused. If there was a little spat, she'll call me and just say, "Hey, Bob, I'm sorry. I need you, I'll stay focused." I'm 100% focused no matter what game I do. I need to do a pregame for myself before each game because that helps me get ready for the game. And I don't want to babble here, but really quick, when I get on the court, I like to give each coach the equal amount of time. I like to get their assistants involved. So like when there's a timeout, I'll say, "Hey, coach, you got this many seconds to go. You have 2 timeouts left or whatever," because the head coach is doing their job and I don't want to interfere with them. And it just comes natural for me. I have fun. And when I get out there, I just enjoy doing what I do. Also, I've kind of implemented a new thing. When we were in high school, if you were a captain of the team, it was an honor, and you had that C on your letter sweater. Well, now I tell each captain, I go individually and I say, "Hey, captain, this is an honor to be a captain. Represent your school with class and help me out with your teammates in that."
Cool. Brandon, you've accelerated. You've gone to higher levels of officiating. Can you talk about some of the camps and things that happen in the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, what he's saying is true. It's year round. You know, after the season, you got summer league stuff, and when the summer league stuff is over, you got camps. And even during the season, he talked about film. You know, yeah, I'm watching every game that I work. I'm not watching the full game, but I'm picking out things that I need to double check and see if I had right. So it's a year round thing when you're officiating.
We talked today a lot about coaches and officials wanting better communication. It's not an accident that Bob and Brandon are up here. You're up here because you're not only regarded as some of the best officials in our region, but because your temperament and your ability to be the calm and the chaos is among the best. Can you share with us and for the coaches and officials, how do you keep calm? How do you deal with coaches that are maybe less calm than you are? How do you do such a good job at that?
Go ahead, Brandon.
Is it just natural for both of you?
I mean, yeah, it's crucial. Communication is key. Respect both ways. They respect you, you respect them, and they a lot of times just want an answer. So you give them an answer, an honest answer. Sam mentioned when you're wrong, tell them you're wrong. Hey, I might have missed that one. So a lot of coaches just want to hear you respond and give them a respectful answer. And sometimes coaches just want to vent, so they may give you an opinion. Oh man, that was a bad call. You don't got to respond to that because it's not a question. He just was telling you it's a bad call. I'm gonna keep moving on that because I gotta keep focusing on the play. So communication.
Anything you want to add to that, Bob?
I've just always been low key. I did the Mackers way back in the day, and that was. If I could do that, I could do anything. But real quick story with Erica. I had her in a game, and the score was lopsided. And at the end of the game, I blew a call, and I just went up to her and I said, "Erica, I got to do better." And I didn't want to get the game over with. I just said, "I got to do better." And I just was honest. I'm just honest.
About it.
Yeah.
Coaches, can you give some of your perspective about how you like to engage with officials? Maybe either talk about what you really like or a pet peeve when you're communicating with an official.
I like to have fun with the officials. I try to make jokes, but my jokes are stupid, so sometimes they look at me like I'm crazy. But I don't know. I just think it's a respect thing. It's kind of the theme of the night. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes as coaches, right? My players are making mistakes. Everybody's doing, that during the night. And I just think it's something that we need to practice, I think, a little bit more. You can't just say it. I think you got to practice it. And if you're not one to be able to do it naturally, to put, yourself in that high intense emotional spot and not be able to hold into your emotions well, you got to practice it. Otherwise, you're going to not be great at it. So I just think it's that respect level that you have with the officials. And I think the more you get to know them, like with anything, with any relationship, the more you get to know them, I think the better relationship you have. And you're able to have that respect a little easier too.
Eric, anything you want to add?
Well, just piggyback off that. I think for me, I've been blessed and fortunate. As I look out to the crowd, I recognize a lot of the faces, and I think the biggest thing is relationships. When I think of a ref that's done a great job, I often think first and foremost, I probably have a good rapport, a relationship of some sort. I think the communication, as Brent B said, is the most important thing too, because over time we'll build a rapport and a relationship. But in the moment, I think if you communicate, I think that says a lot. And I think it goes back to just if I'm arguing, quote unquote, arguing a call, or I question a call, or if I ask the ref, hey, can I talk to you instead of being standoffish or not being approachable, then we can have that communication. And it's great, I think, when a ref say, you know what, I may have missed that one. That was a close call. And I think it de-escalates the emotions of the coach, and I think it can de-escalate the situation pretty rapidly when you know. And I think the other thing is having awareness too for some of our officials. I think the big games, but I think most of the guys and young ladies officials are coming in, I think understanding the magnitude of the game. Not that you would call it differently, but you know what's at stake when it's a rival game. And you probably have a little bit more latitude as to have a quick whistle. And I just think those are the things, and obviously when you have a ref that's really knowledgeable and they're really decisive in their calls, I think it keeps the flow of the game. And then just being able to manage the game, things I look at when I think a ref that's done a nice job that night.
Thank you. This next question is for you, Jonathan. As an AD, can you talk about setting expectations of sportsmanship? You heard a lot today that the issues that we're having with keeping new officials happens at the lower levels. Can you talk a little bit about how you set expectations with your coaches, what those discussions look like?
We start, and some of our coaches are here tonight, they'll attest. I talked to all of our coaches initially and let them know that that's not their job. Their job is not to yell and scream and holler at officials. Their job is to coach. And we kind of come at it from three different directions, really. The first is, there are a couple other ADs in here I know of, and we will all tell you, as a coach and a player, I don't know if I heard probably not even hardly anything that came out of the stands. We were focused on what was going on, and that's what we did. Now as an AD, it's all I hear, right? But you see things from a different perspective, and I think there's a couple of them here that'll tell you, when our kids, it's maybe a little different than what it was. We've all got a handful of probably kids who probably don't fit in this mold, but on the whole, we have a lot of, call them mental midgets, frankly, right now. And what happens a lot when our coaches start to get into that mode of, Bob, you didn't do this, or that was wrong, or this is that, and they start going, immediately our kids start doing the same thing. And if you watch, and some of you maybe need to go back and take a look at some film, but if you watch, your play starts to really deteriorate. And we talk about this a lot with our coaches. When our kids start focusing on what's happening with officials, we get really, really bad, really, really fast. And so we talk about that because ultimately they're going to look at our head coaches and say, hey, how are they responding to that call? What did they do? And if our head coaches are going nuts, they're going to start to lose their minds too. That's the first piece. We want to give ourselves every opportunity we can to win. We want to give ourselves every opportunity we can to compete at a high level. Our kids, maybe some of you, there are programs that'll have enough talent to get by. A lot of us don't. A lot of us will have kids that are going to work their tails off. They're going to compete. Maybe they're 500, maybe they're a bit above on some years, maybe they're not. But if we're in that mode where we're fighting and arguing about every call, we get really, really bad, really fast. So that's the first one. The second one is we focus on the same thing on those parents. When most of our parents, and ADs can attest to this, you sit in the stands for about 30 seconds, and it's the most disgusting thing you've ever seen and heard in your entire life. And 99% of them have no idea what they're talking about. They don't even understand the rules. They're mad and yelling and screaming about something, and they're completely wrong. They have no idea what the rules are. And that's the case for the most of them. Some of them who have played at a high level, coached at a high level, you're never going to hear from them. But the majority of those folks, they don't get it. And so you find out real quick, when they don't really understand what's going on, what are they going to do? They're going to look and see, well, how did our coach respond? That coach is supposed to know. He or she is supposed to know these things. So if they respond and go crazy, we're going to do the same thing, and now we're going to lose it. And as ADs, that's the worst thing in the world, having to deal with parents that can't freaking keep their stuff together in the stands, right? So that's the second piece, is we really try to focus on making sure that our coaches are responding properly, because our players and our parents are both going to respond to them. The last piece is, and this is something that I think maybe gets probably overlooked too often, is what some of you guys have already talked about and what we've talked about tonight, in that these people are human beings. And at the end of the day, what we really need to focus on is finding a way to live with a little bit more grace in our lives, and finding a way to make sure that that's our first response and not our last. And not waiting until 3 weeks later and going, all right, well, maybe they were having a bad day, or maybe it was this, or maybe it was that. And we talk about a lot of the fact that, listen, your job, you can have a conversation with official. Bob and I go back probably, 25, 30 years now from coaching. And one of the things that I've always appreciated about it is, if there was something I didn't agree with, I'd say, Bob, what's going on? I didn't see this. He would come up to me and he'd be the first to say, I missed that one. My bad, I'm gonna get it right next time. Or, here's what I saw. Here's the key. As coaches, you have to be willing to have a one-on-one conversation with an official, not yell and scream and holler at them across the floor. Because I will tell you, as an AD, when parents come If you come yelling and screaming and hollering at me, it's not even going to make it in one ear to get out the other, okay? You might as well go find the nearest brick wall because I didn't listen to a thing you just said. Come and have an adult conversation, a reasonable conversation level, normal voice level conversation with me, and we can talk all day long. But if you're not, I'm not listening. These people are human beings. Some point, human nature is going to take over. If all you're going to do is yell and scream and holler at them, officials can probably tell you how many calls that happen throughout the course of a game that are subjective somewhat, right? 50-50 type calls. There's a lot, right, that happens throughout the course of a game. Human nature says at some point you're going to stop getting the benefit of the doubt if you just keep yelling and screaming and hollering about everything. But coaches, you have to be able to have a calm one-on-one conversation and a dead ball. 2, you have to be able to be wrong. 3, you have to be able to say, okay, I don't agree with you, but that's all right. Now I understand what your perspective is. And for the officials out there, you guys got to understand too, if a coach is willing to talk to you and have that conversation versus yelling and screaming and hollering, please have that with them. Have that conversation. Tell them, hey, yeah, you know what? I did. I screwed that one up. I'm going to get it better next time. We're going to move on. Bob said that to me once. The only thing I could say is like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Like, what's for dinner? We didn't have anything to talk about after that, right? Because there was nothing else to talk about with regards to the game at that point. I knew what he knew. We were good. We were moving on. Or if he's going to come and say, hey, this is what I saw, you have to be willing as coaches to go, okay, I didn't see it that way, but I get it. But the officials have got to be the same, and that's what Coach Brown has talked about, Coach Taylor has talked about, and these officials have talked about is having that mutual respect for each other and knowing and understanding that, hey, we're in this together. You don't have a game without these guys. That's one of the things that we try to talk to our parents a lot about. If these guys aren't here, we don't have games. And so you're losing opportunities for your kids by the way that you're acting in the stands, so knock it off. Coaches, same kind of thing. So again, with our coaching staff, we talk a lot about those things, is making sure that you're reacting properly for kids, for parents, and then you're doing the right things with the officials and having those conversations so that they can do the same thing with you and have that open, honest conversation.
Thank you. Okay, last question for everybody. Based on the information you heard today, or you knew you were going to be up on the stage, anything that was of note or interesting that you would encourage your fellow coaches or fellow officials to take away from today's session? Eric?
First of all, I just think this is a great opportunity for us to come together and collaborate. I think sometimes we see it as we're enemies, but really we're allies for the same thing. The biggest takeaway is really just that we're really in this. And I think sometimes, as Jonathan said, we let our emotions get in the way, or our perceptions and perspective, or our biases. And I think when we have a time to step back and reflect a little bit, you quickly have to have grace and empathy. There's no way 2 different crews are going to be as consistent as the coaches would like. If you have a veteran crew and you have a new crew, they have to start somewhere. So you know they're going to make some mistakes. But I think as we're seeing the decline in officials, we have to have a level of grace at that point. But when you're in the moment, you don't quite see it like that. So I think the biggest thing is understanding that we're really allies, and then we're working for the same common cause. And I think for me, it's just trying to mentor to our young men while you're on the sideline, to the refs, to the community, even though that's not always as easy. As you know, we're human, and you get excited, and you know your adrenaline's flowing and you want to win. And so, but at the same time, being mindful of what's going on, and it's bigger than me. It's bigger than the refs. It's really about these student athletes, and it's a game. So as Coach said, we should have fun. So I think we got to keep that at the forefront. There's a lot of variables that play into it. So I think we just have to understand at the highest level, NBA at the collegiate level, they make mistakes. So I just, for me, I think just being here tonight and seeing the refs and really applauding them on what they do, especially all the abuse that they take in the AAU, as Goey said, like people that don't even understand, they're yelling and screaming, and they can get violent, and it's just like, so what they do in the time that they give, I think we have to understand and be very mindful and respect that they're there for the same reasons that we're there as coaches.
Brandon?
coaches coach, players play, fans cheer, officials officiate. If we all can stick to that, I think we'll be in good shape. I also encourage, from a coaching standpoint, you can emphasize rules knowledge, and if a rule was improperly adjudicated, like that's something you can like push for more versus a discretion call. Like a lot of calls are discretion. I don't tell you what plays to run. You don't tell me if that was a foul. Like I feel like he was in pretty good position. So I don't tell you when to sub. You know, you don't tell me like. But if the ball goes out of bounds underneath the hoop and we inbound it on the sideline, that was a rules thing that was improperly adjudicated, and you can push that. You say, hey, that's supposed to be underneath the hoop. If we do that incorrectly, you could push for that more. So, like the discretion calls, you know, I didn't feel like it was that. We got different opinions, so.
Like
Bob?
Kind of throw a little twist here. I'll make it short. Thank you for all you've done with the statistics and everything. I think it was an eye-opener. Thank you to everybody out there that's coaches, officials, commissioners, my partners, all the people I've worked with. Jonathan here, we've had a relationship on and off the court. But the most thing that I've taken from this, I've had 46 years of roughing, and all the relationships that I've made, I am one of the most blessed guys in the world to get to know everybody, to work with you guys, everybody. And even with coaches, I had season tickets with a basketball coach for 20 years at the University of Michigan, and he would yell at me on the floor, but we'd leave it there, and we would go on Saturdays and have fun. But just, I'm really honored to know everybody and be friends with everybody.
Jonathan, any other parting thoughts from you?
I think I know a lot of officials in here and a lot of coaches. I think what Patrick did in this process was pretty impressive and a very good thing is to let you know that these people are putting in a lot of time to do what they do. I know for our coaches in particular, but I know a number of you also that are in here that they put in a boatload of time. They work their tails off to try to do this, and it means a lot to them. So do our officials. It means a lot to them as well. And they do. They put in a lot of work. So wherever and whenever possible, find ways to live in grace and do that as a first response, not as a last resort.
Thank you. And Erica, I'm adding a add-on question for you. We only have 3% female officials. Can you give your unique perspective on how your players feel when they see a female ref on the floor?
Oh, well, yeah, that's really nothing that we've ever sat down and talked about, I don't think. I do think going through tonight and seeing all the statistics on that, it is eye-opening. I do think that females are hesitant, and especially nowadays, because you get yelled at. And I don't think the bigger population of females wants to deal with that or is, real strong in that. I think to fix that, you gotta start at the lower levels and help the younger girls see that it's fun and that it's something that women can do. And then it starts to evolve over time. I'd love to see more female referees in the conference. I have a good friend who's a D1 official. She loves it. She travels. I mean, she'd be someone that could come in and talk all of, her experiences and all the things. She's mostly MAC schools, but she will say, you have conversations with her and she will say, it is tougher now than it was back when she started. And that's just kind of the way in which our culture has unfortunately turned. But I would love to see that grow.
Any other last comment from you? I kind of preempted your question.
So that's okay.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you too. I think tonight was very eye-opening. A lot of points I get to take back to talk with my coaches about, my AD about. I just appreciate everybody's role. I love the talk about grace and doing that first, taking time to get to know people. Communication is the foundation of success in any relationship, and I think that's a huge part of being successful in anything that you do, right? It's how coaches communicate to players, it's how ADs are communicating to coaches, coaches to refs, and then outside of the game of basketball, I mean, that's life too, right? How are parents communicating to kids? and wives to husbands, all of that. Communication is such an important piece of success. And when you put that aside and you get tunnel vision and you just think about you lose that. You lose the human piece of it. You lose the camaraderie and that relationship piece. So I think it's super important to remember, as you go through this, to me, it's not about the wins and losses. Yes, I'm a very competitive person and I want to win in everything I do. My husband can attest to that. But at the end of the day, it's what is my student athlete what is she going to learn in the 4 years that she's in my program? And is she going to be successful leaving? Because such a low percentage of these student athletes are going to college to play the sports that they want to or think they can. So the relationship piece is a huge part of that. And that's what we strive in our program to really hit home. And I just want to say thank you. I've had a great time over the past 3 years getting to know the officials, the coaches. I love the pregame talks. I get to know you guys as people, not just coaches. So I appreciate all of that. So thank you. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Can everyone give us a round of applause for our panelists? Thank you for coming up here. Thank you. You guys are good to go. Thank you. All right, and as our panelists leave, when you only get together every 12 years, there's a lot of information, and we didn't get through it all. And out of respect for your time, and we've already been here for 2 hours, we're going to wrap for tonight. But what I'd ask you to keep an eye out for is there's information that is important that we didn't get to that's going to be shared with you. Either I'm going to make another short video for you to watch, or there's going to be documents that come. That's for coaches and officials. So more information to come. That's important stuff that we'll get to another time. But I want to commend you and thank you for making the time to be here. Special thanks to all of our guests. We had people come from all over the state to come talk to you and be with you today. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for filling out the surveys. And a special thank you to Blaine and David at East Kentwood for allowing us to have this event here today. I think there's some refreshments outside in the hall. Please take those on the way out. Thank you for being here. Good luck this season, and we will see you soon. Thank you.